Today's recording may include adult themes and strong language. You never know. If you're lucky, fingers crossed. Hello and welcome to Comic Cuts, the panel show. My name's Kev F. Sutherland. You might know me as a writer and artist for Beano, Marvel Comics, Oink, Doctor Who, the Scottish Falsetto Sock Puppet Theatre, and my graphic novel adaptations of Shakespeare, although chances are you probably don't. My guests today, talking comics, are Brian Bolland and Rianne Rowlands.
Hello.
Comic Cut. We're looking at a panel, and we comprise a panel. There's a few of us. So the panel sees a panel, then we talk about the comics. From the panel we discuss, we call it Comic Cuts.
Wow. I can't believe you do that live. I thought it was recorded.
I have two guests with me today who've brought with them a panel from a comic or something close. We're going to see if we can identify it and talk about it. Maybe we and you will learn something about comics we didn't already know, or maybe we'll just show off a bit and have an enjoyable chat. Let us see. Brian, are you somewhere in East Anglia?
I'm somewhere in East Anglia, yes. I'm somewhere near Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk and somewhere near Cambridge.
And this is the part of the world you originated in as well, wasn't it?
I originate from Boston in Lincolnshire, and I always have to say that because there is another annoying Boston, or later Boston, in America somewhere.
Let's face it, the two are not directly comparable, are they?
Not really. There are some sort of historical overlaps, but nothing very much.
Unless there's a Cheers bar, that there's much in common between Boston Mass and Boston Lynx.
I think the Mayflower stopped off that's the boat, stopped off in Boston on the way to Plymouth and then to Boston or somewhere in America, but there is a connection there. But you're right.
Have you ever been to the top of the Boston Stump?
Oh, God, yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. Although it has been closed for many years, because the last time I went, which was decades ago, there are stages. There's once, this is not a visual thing. I'm doing a kind of a mime here. You can go halfway up it now. You used to be able to go almost to the top, but the last time I tried that, it was full of pigeon shit. So you couldn't really, and no lights. So you were walking up there in the dark. But it would have been a great view.
Yeah. Do you take unkindly to people suggesting that much of East Anglia is very flat?
No, it is. Oh God! I mean, where I come from, it's like a sort of billiard table. It's just one straight line for a horizon. It's very flat. I currently live in Suffolk, which they call flat, but it's quite rolly where I live. But no, I don't mind at all. Big skies.
To what extent does the place that someone grows up inform their visual sensibilities, do you think?
Well, I'll tell you a little story. I was once at a comic convention in Edinburgh, and I was travelling back by train with Kevin O'Neill and Mick McMahon, some of the others from that era. And we were going through Lincolnshire, and Kevin looked at the landscape of Lincolnshire and said, "No, I can understand why you don't draw backgrounds, Brian."
That's grossly unfair. The suggestion that Brian Bolland doesn't do backgrounds.
Well, I very rarely draw backgrounds.
Do you really think that's the case? I honestly had never. That's the thought that had never occurred to me. Maybe you distract me from the lack of backgrounds by what's in the foreground.
You should never reveal your weaknesses. I mean, I can see them all the time, but I've just given away a big one there. But you should never draw attention to the things you can't do.
Now, certainly when you were breaking into comics, London was the magnet. You had to go to London, really, didn't you?
Well, I suppose so, yeah, unless you're in... where was DC Thompson? Was that Dundee or something?
Dundee. Very few artists seem to have come from Dundee.
No, but there was a lot of comic art going on up there. I mean, DC Thompson was... was that the Beano and all those?
Oh, yeah. Well... Surely you did your very first work for DC Thompson, didn't you?
No. Well, actually, if you want to get really down to the nitty-gritty, I did my very first work for Oz magazine. That's not true. I did my very first work for Time Out magazine. Time Out, together with Oz and Friends and some of those sort of 60s underground, 70s, I suppose, underground magazines were all very similar. Time Out was a sort of an underground rag. And I did a little drawing in there. And then I moved on to Oz.
You started as you meant to go on then, working with the cool kids.
Yeah, no, I never drew for the funnies, really. I mean, the first professional work I did was for a thing called Power Man, which was published by an upstart little company from Suffolk, I believe. And they did this African superhero comic that was sold in Nigeria. And I did that for 2 years, 300 pages of that.
You and Dave Gibbons worked on that?
Me and Dave Gibbons and I alternated issues on that. Yeah. So that was my first mainstream stuff. So I did a few things for DC Thomson as well, because I had an agent, the same agent as Dave, and he got us a bit of work at DC Thomson. And I really can't remember the names of the titles I was in, but they were like 2-page war stories or sort of gothic horror stories. And that was before 2000 AD came along.
And then, of course, 2000 AD was the big break. I mean, did you realise 2000 AD was going to be what it became when you started?
No, not really, no. I think they were just trying it out because the Eagle had contained science fiction through the 50s. Science fiction was a sort of big thing in the 50s, but it fizzled out in the 60s. So when I first started, there wasn't really a science fiction comic, and there was certainly no superhero comics. So when it came along, because Star Wars was the popular thing in 1977, they thought maybe we ought to try a bit of sci-fi. And that's how 2000 AD came along. And it was just a tryout, really. I don't think I mean, how could they look into the future? They didn't know it was going to be a big deal, did they?
Well, if they're going to look into the future, they would have probably given it a title that was set fewer years ahead than 2000 AD.
It would have been 3000 AD, really, wouldn't it?
And you started just by doing covers.
Yes, I suppose so. Well, you see, I was still working on Power Man. I was still having to crank out 17 or 15 pages a month or something. So I didn't really have a lot of spare time. And so I was able to do a few covers for 2000 AD. They didn't really know what was going to be the main theme or the pulling point of 2000. So they got us to come up with random covers, and they would sometimes write a little narrative story to go behind the cover. Then Judge Dredd became the strong character in the comic, and more of us got drawn into that.
It was very interesting that the main artists had their own version of Dredd. When you went from Mick McMahon to you, everything about him, to an extent, would change.
Well, Mick started out when he started out, he was required to. Oh, I could tell you this in great detail. I won't bore you with it, but. I think at the beginning he was a fairly untried young artist, and I think you'll have to ask him, but I think they asked him to draw like Carlos Oscara, who created Judge Dredd. Carlos created him, but then stepped aside for some reason, and Mick was required to be a Carlos impersonator, but his own very interesting and distinct style evolved out of that. And they were open enough for all of us artists to draw in a slightly different style, and it continues today. It's full of all kinds of styles from all sorts of influences, isn't it?
It is. Would it be right in saying that the amount of detail you put into your drawings means they take a long time to do?
Well, when I first started, I was drawing like a page a day for Power Man and things of that sort, and I knew that if I had to crank a page out every day, I'd have to keep it fairly crude. And I knew I could draw better than that given the time. And by the time I was doing, things like Judge Death and whatnot, I knew that I could draw it well-ish, to the best of my ability, providing I had more. So I gave way to my weakness in terms of speed and put in as much time as it required to do the job I knew I could do, even though that meant I couldn't keep up the speed of Mick or Carlos. Carlos was very fast.
Were you ever frustrated by how that printing came out? Because I remember there was a short period when 2000 AD, about 1979, was printed in litho because another comic had been cancelled, I think. And then it went back to the letterpress version again, which made lines a lot less clear.
Oh, well, it was printed on bog paper, wasn't it? I think all of those comics from up till that period were printed. Are you calling it letterpress? I'm not very well up on the printing process, but it's very crude, very rough paper. I'm sure it had been recycled from toilet paper or something like that. But if you look at them today, they've gone very yellow. I was frustrated by a lot of things. My own inability to draw quickly, but also the business about, not returning the artwork. That was a big frustration for all of us artists. Signing away all the right. When you got paid, you had to sign a document to give up all rights to everything in return for the payment. And that was one of the annoying frustrations of the whole thing.
Yes, I mean, that had been their ancient practice, hadn't they?
Yes.
Work for hire until 2000 AD. Everybody was anonymous, of course. You never got your artwork back, and you got no royalties and no rights.
And I think Kevin O'Neill was one of the pioneers of getting us to, I mean, he called us all droids, didn't he? They called us all, we were all robots. And he got away with crediting us by calling us Art Droid, Bolland or McMahon or Gibbons or whatever.
This must have made the temptation of America all the greater, because you and Dave spearheaded the American or the British invasion of America about 1980, wasn't it?
79. Well, yes, 70. I mean, I did my first few covers for DC Comics in 79, and then I suppose 80. Yeah, and then we had a group called the SSI, Society of Strip Illustrators, and some people from DC came over scouting for talent that they'd seen in 2000 AD. And so gradually a rash, I suppose, of British talent started working in America. Yeah, I suppose you'd call it the British invasion.
Well, Wikipedia calls it the British invasion. Who am I to argue?
It must be true.
And then this led to the high watermark of Killing Joke. Well, is Killing Joke a high watermark for you as it is for readers?
Well, it is a high watermark for me because it did mark a time when I was able to do the very thing I wanted with the very best writer at the time, who was my friend, Alan Moore. May have heard of him. So I knew I had to put my best work into it. I've done stuff since then, which I think is a little bit better. But after that, I became, because of my speed, I'm mainly a cover artist.
I could talk covers for ages, but Rianne, you're in the room. Forgive me.
Hi.
I have Rianne Rowlands here, and we were talking about credits on artwork. You're working in the Beano now, and it's only in like the last few years that you lot have been credited, isn't it?
Because before that, we had to hide our signatures in the artwork somewhere. So now it's nice to see our name on the side. But Brian, I'm in awe. You're my hero anyway. You're amazing. And it's so fascinating to hear you talk.
Well, it's so lovely to meet you.
Well,
tell me more. Tell us more.
Well, you both have a connection with covers, because Rianne, you did covers for Funeral for a Friend albums.
I did. They're a rock band from Wales, which is where I live now. I'm from England originally, and I went to university in Cambridge. Not far from you. And I love Cambridge. I miss it. But I moved up here to be close to my family. And yeah, Funeral for a Friend, they're a band. They were very, very big. They're not quite as big now. But I did their album artwork. And that was crazy to walk into HMB and see something that you've made on the shelves. And I've worked for loads of magazines, Download Festival, and I've done lots of children's TV work. I love that.
The children's TV work was interesting for me because you started doing character design for animation. So how different is that from comics work? Do you need to know more?
Yeah, you've got to be more structured because you have to make sure that they can be animated. So you kind of have to simplify them as much as possible without taking away their character. And you have to know what they look like from every angle. You kind of have to imagine every emotion. So, but then it's not that different from when you're drawing comics because you have to know what your character looks like from every angle. And when you're drawing your comics, you almost pretend you're a camera, like if it's a movie and you're filming the scene, it's very similar.
Well, you were storyboarding for a TV show, which I'll have to pretend I've heard of, Chloe's Closet. Was Chloe's Closet really big amongst the kids? It's actually kids' TV, wasn't it?
It was huge amongst the 2-3-year-olds demographic.
What's the discipline of storyboarding like? I mean, are you very heavily dictated to, or do you have much of a free hand?
The guy who ran our studio was very, very strict. So he would give you thumbnails and say, this is what it's got to look like. But sometimes you in other studios I've worked in, you have total freedom. So it just depends really on what studio and what script you get. It's really heavy workload. Storyboarding was very heavy. I much prefer comic books to storyboarding.
What's the chicken and egg situation? Did your work start off being colourful and fun, and so you chose the places to work in? Or is there also a really dark side of you that we just don't get to see at the moment?
Well, funnily enough, when you see my panel, you'll see that little dark side come out. Because I work with all my work is family friendly, children, and I teach workshops for children. And obviously I draw Ruby for the Beano,
yes.
and she's amazing. She's my hero. So yeah, everything I do is completely family friendly, but there is this side of me, like Brian's artwork, I absolutely love, because I love horror. And horror is my thing. So I love horror movies. I've got all Stephen King's collection behind me. And there's that side of me that I never get to explore. But I'm hoping to with my own projects now. So you'll see a little bit of that in my choice of panel.
Well, that's to look forward to, and so are a couple of comic panels. I've asked everyone on the panel to bring a panel to the panel. You can see those images on my website at kevfcomicartist.com, and they should be on the artwork for this episode of the podcast, depending where you get your podcasts from. But don't worry, you shouldn't need to see the images because we are about to describe them. And I think we're going to first look at the image that's been brought to the table by Brian. So we are now looking at the image that Brian's brought. You shouldn't need to see this because Rianne is about to describe it. What are we looking at?
So we're looking at some kind of sci-fi scene. It looks like we may be on another planet. The colours are amazing. We've got blues and purples and yellows and bright, bright red, really contrasting colours. We've got three guys who look like they're in spacesuits. And then we've got an awesome big red lava fire monster coming out of the ground. And it says, a great glowing thing, a living lava creature, head for the mole machine. Oh, I love it. I'm hooked already. I want to know more. And I see in the bottom corner, there's a spaceship as well. Maybe that's the mole machine. We could be digging underground, maybe.
For the benefit of the panelologists at home who study line, colour, technique and the like, I can tell you that we're looking at something that's printed with the flat colour of an American comic book. And in fact, it looks like the flat cover of an American comic book cover from the 1950s, 60s, maybe the 70s. The large voice bubble has got very large lettering on it. And the only time you'd usually get lettering as large as that would be if you were looking at a cover. The three people in space suits are not in distinctive space suits. They're not in a costume that certainly I recognise, like, say, the Challengers of the Unknown or the Fantastic Four. And the line work is not of an artist that I recognise either. The big glowing lava creature from this period, I'm very familiar with the designs of Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko's monsters on the Marvel comics of the time, but this is an unfamiliar style. Rianne, would you like to have a guess at what comic or type of comic or even name of comic we could be looking at?
Oh, it's definitely sci-fi related. And I'm guessing it's probably from maybe the 60s or 70s.
1961.
Oh, perfect.
And what publisher do you think, Rianne?
I'm thinking an American publisher rather than British.
And I've got a slightly unfair advantage because this is a picture cropped in from a front cover. I've seen that front cover. And so now I'm going to show the whole front cover to all of us.
Oh, wow. Oh, I love it. And it's DC.
Brave and the Bold presents Cave Carson's Adventures Inside Earth, a comic I have not heard of and an artist I still don't recognise. Brian, tell us more.
It's Bruno Premiani. He was an Italian. He was born in 1907 and he had to leave Italy because of Mussolini, actually. And he ended up in Argentina, and I think he did quite a bit of work in Argentina. And when he was in his 50s, I don't know whether he actually went and lived in America, but he started at DC Comics drawing Tomahawk, which was a sort of, well, it sounds like, doesn't it, like a Western. And he did a wonderful Classics Illustrated called The Conquest of Mexico. He was an extremely talented artist. He was very good at horses. He actually produced a book all about horses called Caval. Is that Spanish for horse? But he settled in with DC Comics in the sort of early to mid 60s doing Doom Patrol.
Oh yes, well the TV series, of course.
The TV series, yes, that's right. Well, Doom Patrol started off. It was written by Arnold Drake and drawn by Bruno Premiani, who was this guy. And he didn't have an inker. He drew, he penciled and inked the whole thing himself. It was all coloured by other people. And he did the whole of the Doom Patrol series, the original Doom Patrol series from the mid-60s onwards with Elastigirl and Negative Man and Cliff the Robot Man and various other characters, all of whom are now in a TV series. But the TV series is partly based on Grant Morrison's later versions of Doom Patrol, which is very bonkers.
Did the writers get credited at the time that Bruno Premiani was drawing stuff like this in Brave and the Bold?
Well, actually, the artists weren't really. It was very difficult to know. Most of the time, you couldn't see who the artist was. There were some exceptions. You could occasionally you'd see Carmine Infantino signing his name. Alex Toth, who is, I was very tempted to include one of his, put up one of his pictures because he's my favourite artist. But we somehow always knew who all the artists were, even, I think, probably through fanzines, even though they didn't get their names put on there. But this guy, Bruno Premiani, if you knew his style, the running figures in the foreground, those two running towards the mole machine, it was a very, very Bruno Premiani-esque pose they're in there. Very underrated. Not very many people have heard of it.
No, well, that's it. A fascinating part of comics history that has allowed his name to slip through the net as far as getting to me is concerned. The Marvel artists, of course, were immediately credited right from 1961 from the start of the Marvel comics. And so there were so many names like Don Heck and Chick Stone, who were possibly minor players compared to Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, Steve Ditko. And yet readers like myself grew up automatically knowing their names and being reminded week after week after week.
Well, yes, please take note of the man. He was very good. Find the original Doom Patrols. Some people, there was a certain kind of whiz-bang and gloss to the people who did the best, the most popular superheroes, to Jack Kirby and Gil Kane and people like that. They had a kind of gloss about them. Bruno Premiani's work wasn't quite as flash as some of those people who were very, very popular, but technically he was really, really good.
Rianne, this front cover, it's a marvellous piece, isn't it?
Absolutely beautiful. I've never heard of this artist before, but that's why I love this podcast, because you learn about new artists that you might have never heard of before. And like you said, their work is so amazing, but they're getting forgotten. So now me and the younger artists that are coming up can be influenced by these incredible artists, and then their work won't get forgotten. And this is stunning. I'm so glad you chose to share this.
Well, do you know, a thing that gets reclaimed and reprinted more often than the interiors are the covers. I've seen 100 years of DC front covers, also made into postcards and certainly seen widely online. As a result of that, I think Bruno Premiani might be seen by more people in the years to come than for a long time.
Good.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, we've just been looking at a bit of flat colouring with yellow doing the job of a rainbow of fire effects. This is a very different second picture that we're about to look at. We're looking at the panel that's been brought in by Rianne Rowlands. Now, listener at home, you can find this on the website, or you should find it on the artwork for this episode of the podcast, but you don't need to, because we're about to describe it. Aren't we, Brian?
Yes, I've never seen this before. I have no idea who it's by.
Can I just say, Brian has got his work cut out right now. This is one of the hardest panels to try and describe.
It is.
Go for it.
Oh, God. I mean, I usually, when it comes to this work, I tend to think that art speaks for itself. You don't need words when you can draw the picture. Okay, I'll tell you what it looks like. It's there's a mad scuffle of beasts all thrashing about in all directions. And I'm describing this quite slowly because I'm discovering bits of it as I look. There's something at the top that looks like a crazy chipmunk. There's a sort of a moose. There's another moose with what appears to have a great gash in its neck with its tongue hanging out. It's difficult to tell whether it's supposed to be horror or comedy, this, because there is a sort of comedic, there are three human beings at the bottom. One of them is a sort of fairly typically sort of heroic, handsome type guy, although he's got white eyes with no pupils in them. And he seems to be trying to strangle an old guy who's smoking a cigar, who is going ho, ho, ho. Behind him, there is another fellow who could be a sort of troll or kind of elf, and he's got a white mustache. But all around them are these thrashing beasts that are quite hard to make out whether they are based on real animals or whether they are just animated bits of animals.
For the benefit of panelologists, people who study line and technique and the like, I would say that this is drawn in a very modern animation style, although it's clearly a comic strip. You will recognize some of the shapes and proportions from the line work used in Disney and Pixar and other modern animations, especially on the face of our central character. We have in the middle of the composition, we have a heroic figure, as described by Brian. He's wielding a chainsaw.
Oh, so he is. I've just noticed the chainsaw. It's got blood on it.
We have, descending from the top of the pictures and from all sides, we have what appear to be zombie forest creatures.
They're zombie creatures, aren't they? Yes.
Yeah. So I think I'm ready to guess what comic this might be from. But Brian, would you like to have a guess first?
Well, I don't know anything about comics, Kev.
I'm going to guess that this could be from something connected to Sam Raimi's Dead films, Army of the Dead.
Yes.
Is that what it is?
Got it. It is. You got it. You got it.
So, Rianne, tell us what exactly this is we're looking at.
Is from Army of Darkness. You're right. And Ash is our hero in the middle. He's a bit of a doofus, really. He's kind of the anti-hero, but you root for him anyway. His hand got infected by the dead. It's like a book of the dead that kind of brings zombies and it brings things back to life, but in like an evil way. And when you said about the humor, that's exactly what it is. It's like splat gore, humor, silliness, and Ash's hand got infected by the dead, so you have to chop it off. And now he's got the chainsaw instead of the hand. That's why it looks a little bit off, because it is actually his hand.
I hadn't realised that. I can see that now, yeah. Yeah,
and his infected hand still kind of chases him and harasses him, and it has a mind of its own. And the comics are just silly, funny, kind of... They're just really nice. And the reason that I love horror is because of all of the types of horror, you get books, you get movies, you get comics, you always get the same thing of being able to face your fears. So when at the end of a horror movie, when it's finished and you're like, oh, okay, I survived. What have I learned about myself? That kind of feeling. But the artist is Nick Bradshaw. Yeah. He's a Canadian artist.
Nick Bradshaw.
Nick Bradshaw, Canadian.
Yes, he does, his style now is very different. He works for Marvel now. He does Fantastic Four, Spider-Ham, Avengers, Black Panther, Venom. He's been doing that for about 10 years now, I think. But this comic came out in 2004. So his style has really evolved.
Is that the whole picture, or is there a logo at the top of this?
It's a panel, yep. And the reason I chose it is because, like your artwork, Brian, it is so detailed. And like you said, as you're looking around it, you just see different things each time. It kind of appears in front of you. And sometimes these panels are so chaotic that you can't work out what's going on. It takes you a while. You have to go back and look at them again. But I
was having that trouble too. As you were asking me to describe it, I was thinking, oh my God, there's another creature in the top left-hand corner. I hadn't seen that.
That's it.
Yeah, I like that.
If all of these creatures were on the same plane, it wouldn't work. If all the creatures were the same size, if they were coming from the same direction, it wouldn't work, or it would work differently. But we see with the lighting that he's used in his colouring, but as well as the position of Ash's body, his arm is up, raising his chainsaw, then his shoulders slope down, leading us down his arm towards the dead prospector lying on the ground.
Can I just ask one question? Is this art in ink on paper? Is there actual artwork involved in this before the colour goes on, do you think?
Yes. He pencils everything, and then he scans in his pencils, and someone else does the colouring. But it's all pencil, and he does very much like that Disney Pixar feel. It's all very pencily, and then he scans in his pencils, so he doesn't even ink them. But I think now on his newer stuff, he does ink, and I think he's digital rather than traditional. But I think a lot of us have gone digital now, haven't we?
Actually, Brian, have you gone digital?
I've been digital for 23 years.
What, wow. For every stage of the artwork?
Much to the horror of artwork collectors.
Well, is it to your disservice that you haven't got original artwork to sell?
Oh, it is, yeah. It's great having, it's great having original artwork to sell, but I love the things you can do. I do everything in Photoshop. There are so many other bits of software, a Manga Studio and all kinds of other things that I can't be asked to learn them. Actually, I know how to. I know how to use Photoshop. It's even a 10-year-old copy of Photoshop, you're supposed to keep updating them, but this is a really old version I use.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Photoshop. And the colorist is Etienne Saint Laurent. So I assume because that's Nick Bradshaw is from Ottawa, which is French Canadian, Canada, French Canada. So I think that may be a French Canadian artist who does the coloring as well. But yeah, it's stunning. As a piece of art, I think that is just incredible. I call it ordered chaos.
Here's another question. Is this just one panel out of like 6 or something on the whole page?
Yes. So he does an average of about 6 to 8 on a page, and that is one panel, and most of them are as detailed as that.
Wow.
Yeah. Now,
is incredible.
I will say that too much detail can give you a bit of a headache. I think you've got to pace it a bit, haven't you? You've got to have a bit of detail next to, something that's a little easy on the eye that you can scan very quickly and then move on.
Definitely. And when you read his stories, they do flow like that. When the Deadites come out and attack, it becomes very chaotic. And then when it's calm again, the panels do reflect that, and the colours reflect it too. You'll have to look at them. You'll love it.
So we're right guessing that this is actually a splash panel bigger than most of the panels in the strip.
Actually, no. This is on the page is about average. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm getting a headache already just looking at it.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a blur of detail. That's very, very challenging for the reader. Army of Darkness comes from the Sam Raimi Dead films, which were the original video nasties. 40 years ago, when Brian was introducing Judge Death, another zombie of sorts, Judge Death was sort of the safe end of zombies, and Sam Raimi, Video Nasties, was getting banned and discussed in Parliament. And now this is almost child-friendly.
I mean, are there any Disney animated zombie films these days? I mean, I haven't seen any.
They've done the Day of the Dead in
Coco.
Yeah.
Coco. They did the Mexican Day of the Dead. So skeletons and ghosts and all that kind of stuff, but it was done in such a lovely way that it wasn't done for scares. It was done for more remembering your family members, and it's such a beautiful film. Definitely watch that.
And slightly darker was Tim Burton's Corpse Bride, which again is a zombie story. And actually, the Hotel Transylvania films have taken the stuff which, again, when they were in Universal movies, were X-rated films, and this was the subject matter. Actually, within a decade, they become Abbott and Costello films. So maybe it doesn't take long before horror loses its edge.
My 3-year-old absolutely loves the Hotel Transylvania movies. So that tells you everything.
And 50 years ago, I was dancing to the Monster Mash.
You weren't around 50 years ago, Kev, were you?
Oh, whatever happened to my Transylvania twist? Well, thank you, Rianne. Thank you, Brian, for those 2 amazing suggestions. We have been looking at the cover of Cave Carson from The Brave and the Bold Presents, drawn by Bruno Primiani, selected by Brian. And we've been looking at Nick Bradshaw's artwork from Sam Raimi's Army of Darkness. And if you have any questions about this, you could always try and contact us on our social media. Rianne, where will we find you?
I'm on Instagram at Rianne Rowlands, and it's Rianne Rowlands. It's a funny spelling. Blame my mum for that. And I'm in the Beano every week with Ruby.
Don't forget Rianne in the Beano.
Can I friend you?
Oh my God, yes, please. Yes. And funnily enough, I wanted to send you some pictures because my partner is a tattooist and he's actually tattooed your artwork on people.
Oh, right.
Have you seen tattoos of your artwork before?
Yes, and Brian wants his pound of flesh.
Actually, yes, I demand those pieces of flesh be cut off and delivered to my house immediately. Yes, I have actually. Yes, I've seen Joker faces on people's legs, mainly on their legs for some reason.
Brian, where do we find you on the socials?
Well, I'm very bad at it at the moment. I'm just on Facebook. I don't have a website or an Instagram or any of the others, or even a blog. I had one of those, but that became defunct. So I'm going to have to rectify that. But you can find me on Facebook, but all of the stuff I put on there is available for people to download and spread about as they wish.
Or, of course, Judge Dredd fans can contact Judge Anderson, as created by Brian, and reach him telepathically. That was Comic Cuts. Please click subscribe to be sure of hearing every episode when it comes out, and leave us a review, why don't you? Thanks again to Brian Bolland and Rianne Rowlands, and to you at home for listening. I've been Kev F, and this has been Comic Cuts, the panel show.